Welcome to the Missouri Wind and Solar Podcast. Thank you for downloading it. I'm your host, Wes Shank, and I'm here today with our co-host, David McDaris and Philip Shank. Each week, we review the latest, greatest happenings in wind and solar and how they'll impact you and your alternative energy projects. If you'd like more information about anything you've heard on the podcast, check out all of our education resources at windandsolar.com, including links to over 300 of our YouTube videos. Or feel free to reach out to our Seymour-based sales team at 417-708-5359. You can also email them at sales@windandsolar.com. If you really want to go in depth, come and sit down with McDaris and attend his 2-day class. You'll get great hands-on information, and I will even buy you a Subway sandwich and Casey's Pizza over here in Seymour. You can get all of that information at windandsolar.com. And today, we are talking about a very curious subject here. I have to laugh a little bit because I think the first time this came up, I think I had just got my new hearing aids, like literally the day before. And then Israel was blowing up pagers on people. And I was like, I need to make sure where my hearing aids came from. Got to keep them in a little metal box at night. So anyway, we had some we usually don't mix too much with the cyber warfare and that sort of thing on alternative energy. But Philip was telling me about some stuff we've been hearing about. So Philip, what's going on?
With the introduction of residential solar and energy systems, a lot of it has come into integrating with the network. You have your all-in-one inverter, and it has a software that runs on it. So we need to have the capability to do software updates. With that, your options are either a USB drive or actually have it connected to the internet. And with most of these larger systems, they don't really want you running the risk of breaking your system or doing the software update wrong. So they want to be able to do it remotely, which is where you come into basically getting your software over the internet, which does mean that your inverter is connected to the internet. It is visible. It has an IP address. The question has become, what cybersecurity requirements do we have on the grid? Your batteries, your inverter, and if you really want to extend it out, you have your home security system. You have an infinite number of things connected to the internet, which is now starting to become the Internet of Things. With that, there have been several hacker groups that have started going out and seeing if they can target stuff. Well, I think the most recent one was Growat and SMA. There was discovered a vulnerability to it. And luckily, I don't believe anything really crazy came of it, but it does open the question is, do we have secure hardware that is running our home that is supposed to keep us safe?
What happened? As we all know, I've got 2 Sol-Arks in my house. I've got internet connected to them because we monitor them and see power production every day. Basically, what could happen with that? Could they just brick it, basically? And when we talk about bricking, it just makes, that's a little nerd comment about turning whatever you've got device-wise into a brick. That's all it's good for. So
that is the question, is how much of your inverter do you own? Do you own the entire software to it? Can you just remove your antenna and now that is yours off grid? Or do you have to have cloud computing? I know with your Sol-Arks, there is the My Sol-Ark app, and they're very proudly migrated over to AWS. So they're keeping all of their stuff in the US. But with that, you still have the ability to remove your Wi-Fi dongle.
I can pull that off there.
You can go off the grid, but then you're not getting software updates, what level of requirement is there on that? It depends on what level you're willing to trust what you got it at. There's always going to be something to change in software, so you're always going to need that update.
It's interesting you bring that up because in my configuration, I've got Sol-Arks and then I've got Fortress eVaults. And I use a Guardian on the eVaults, which allows basically the same type of communication that the My Sol-Ark application does. And I've actually seen on those where my BMS is several versions old, and I've reached out to their technical support and they're like, no, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that seems a little curious also. Whereas I make sure we use primarily Linux here at the store. We make sure we run updates at least monthly. It seems interesting that maybe with the power tools, if it ain't broke, we don't need to fix it.
Yeah, so that's the debate against cybersecurity specialists is, do you want the monkey with the wrench, which is an analogy of if you're trying to break your stuff to fix it better, you put a monkey with a wrench in there. But either they'll smack stuff around and break it, and then you can go back and make it better. And that's what a lot of these larger, more important software systems do. I know AWS operates in this way, is that you introduce some level of maliciousness in, and then you can go through and fix it and make it better. That's more of what you want in your energy infrastructure, making sure that we're constantly upgrading and improving, especially since, like you said, you do have your Sol-Arks connected to my Sol-Ark. If they discover a vulnerability, they can patch that before anyone actually is ever able to get into it.
Question there, Philip. You just said that they can get into it. I know Wes, he uses, I do believe, Android. So he's using his Android phone, and he can get on his phone and he can look at his app because they have the Sol-Ark app. I think they have the Evil app on his phone.
Yeah.
And so he can get on his phone. If that is connected in through that capacity, can they get back through that all the way into your phone, which would have an amazing amount of critical data in that phone? Would they be able to get back through that? Would that be a communication line they could get back into?
Cyber is a very weird place right now, is that there was a government agency that went out and basically did research into what's called memory unsafe versus memory safe languages. The primary memory safe language is Rust. With Rust, whenever you're telling your computer to do something, you have to be incredibly specific. And by incredibly specific, if I tell you turn off the light and I point at a light switch, you know that I need you to go turn off that light switch. With Rust, it would be, I need you, Wes, to stand up, take 3 paces over, go touch the light switch, push the light switch down, and then that will have the lights go off. So you have these two areas. Energy is trying to go to memory safe, and where you have to do all those definitions. But with memory unsafe, you run into the ability to do like a malicious code injection. If somewhere in there I tell him to go turn off the light switch and he walks over there, but I put a bear trap in the middle of the floor, I have a malicious activity hidden in me telling him to go turn off the light switch. And that's what happens in a lot of these instances, is there's some sort of vulnerability where it wasn't necessarily lazy coding, but an adverse effect of some form of coding done. That's where, like, a new thing, we work with an agency called SEPA, and they do meetings regularly. That one of those that I commonly sit in on is cybersecurity, where they're talking about a NERC-CIP certification, where basically Department of Energy and Department of Cybersecurity are working together to come up with a standard for energy infrastructure. I believe AWS is working towards being compliant with that fully. Anything that's hosted on there would be a safe code.
It's curious to me is it seems you've got these very sophisticated machines. It's actually something that you don't just trot over to Home Depot or Menards and pick up Midnight all-in-one system or Fortress batteries or whatever. But then a lot of the time, it's curious that, and I want to be careful here because we've got some great partners and I don't want to throw off on them at all. But it seems like a lot of times then you've got the app that's, where did it come from? And as we all know, it's most cost effective to offshore writing information for an app. If you're sending that offshore, how do you know what you're getting back on that? If I have something that's 10 lines of code, sure, I can walk through 10 lines of code and read it. But that's presumably what they're not. You have a nice, slick app, then how many layers deep does somebody go in there and dig through that and see, okay, I see you wrote the code, but what does it actually do?
That's a valid question with anything. It is, we have smart refrigerators and we have refrigerators. Is why are we integrating all this extra stuff into something that could be simplified? And that's where in our previous podcast, we talk about the Stratus 2s, which is literally just an inverter. There is no technology driven behind that. You don't need an app. You don't need a dongle. And then now you have the all-in-ones, is you are adding in features for convenience, which does mean that there is a level of risk you are taking in that. So where you're
now, does the 2, does it connect though? Is there?
No, there is
no.
no.
The 2 doesn't connect. The 3 does.
3 does, yeah. It can.
Stratus 2 has a little switch that you can put somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that is it.
Yeah, it's not, but it doesn't connect on the level like the Stratus 3 or the Midnight would connect on. Matter of fact, the Midnight all-in-one requires your phone just to have it set up. Whereas the Sol-Ark, you can set up on the screen on the front display, and the Midnight does not offer that. They do not even have a screen display. They are simply using an app on the phone to set
But then can you disconnect from the...
You can disconnect from the Wi-Fi, but you cannot disconnect from it's Bluetooth. It'll Bluetooth to your phone, but you must Bluetooth to your phone. But you do not have to use Wi-Fi with it. Just like the Sol-Ark, you do not have to use Wi-Fi with it.
Yeah, everything we have can be air gapped,
Yeah.
which is a term saying that you can remove the antennas from it and have it operate without internet connection. I believe that's something that we discussed is a goal of Missouri Wind is maintaining that you can keep your hardware.
Yeah, because there are a lot of our customers that definitely want to be air gapped. They do not want to have to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. And I wish there was an easier way for mine to be able to look at that information and not...
Well, Wes, you live a very nice off-grid system that most people that if they would be living at home, they're not leaving and going. So they'd monitor at home, whereas you don't. You have to come to the store and be with us. So you don't get to do this remotely.
And with that, you can introduce additional components. Like we speak previously, Victron has a smart shunt. So if you're really just trying to track your battery and you want your batteries and your inverter off-grid, you can add that component in and have that on the grid if you're really worried about a cyber attack. But as I've mentioned, Sol-Ark is working very hard to have their software be held in America. And Fortress is doing the same. And I know there have been events in the past where manufacturers have acted maliciously, but that wasn't the company itself.
Right.
That was an adverse effect of a lawsuit.
Yeah. I don't know if you two are involved in it or not. We even had an opportunity to work with one of our vendors a little bit on their software. And the first thing that they showed us, in an alpha version of the software, it was asking for your location. Do you remember that?
I do.
I don't know. Philip, you probably weren't here yet.
You spoke to me about it.
That just stopped me because I know our client base is, what do you need that for?
Yeah. Why do you need my location?
Why?
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, with the majority of our customers, that would be the end of their software experience. If the first thing you ask was their location, it would be also the last thing that you ask them, because to me, it seems a little bit excessive on just about everything that you want to run into your phone. They want to know your location on.
And that's something when we were at RE Plus, and anytime any vendor wanted to talk to us and it was something that had a computer in it, if I asked them, where is your software? And like, where is your cloud hosted? And they didn't have the answer, I knew the answer wasn't what I wanted to hear.
It wasn't in AWS.
Yeah, that's a big part of our auditing process whenever we're onboarding a product is what are your intentions with my clients?
And frankly, there's some that we know straight up, some of our less expensive products, they come from China and they're going to have software that's in China.
With removable antennas.
But there's a price point there, right? That's something
That's exactly what
you know, if you're sensitive to price point, then there's concessions that you're going to have to make. And sadly, the reality is this is one of them. If it was your house, Philip, what would you do?
I'd make sure that my products are able to be air gapped. And whenever it does come down to the time for doing a software update, then you can bring it back on grid. Personally, I'm a tech enthusiast, so I'm just going to leave all my stuff on the internet and embrace what comes with that. But there's a lot of the DIY groups I'm in that they discuss interacting with your inverter in a non-traditional way, that you can use your own code to do it if you're nerdy enough to play around with that. But basically, you can integrate your stuff with Google Home and monitor it that way instead of having external connections.
You mentioned SEPA, which we're a member of. Are there certifications that you should look at? I know we're constantly looking at UL listed or CE listed or that type of thing. Is there anything out there that says, hey, we've audited the code here and you're hunky-dory, or is it all just...
NERC SIP is what's coming out. I don't believe it has residential yet, but the larger scale megawatt systems do have to be NERC SIP compliant.
And you're saying a word that sounds really odd. I guess
NERC space CIP.
CIP. Okay. You feel like that's going to be something that's going to become a standard? And
hopefully, cybersecurity is definitely starting to pick up on the credit that it's required. And we saw that a lot at the RE Plus LA that we went to, where more and more people were advertising that they're moving their software to AWS or similar web client. It's just going to be whether your firmware is going to start being open sourced or audited. And then once we start getting to that level, then you'll truly see who's doing what with your information.
So let me ask you, maybe coming from another direction, what would you see are the benefits? I understand I'm a nerd too. I'm a computer nerd very much and all that. And I understand keeping your software patched, keeping your software up to date, and that sort of thing. But when we're talking about these very, what you want to call them, it's a mechanical device. It's really, I would think, I don't know, I'll get your opinions on this. Would you say an inverter is more mechanical or is it electronic?
It's mainly solid state now. You'll have your analog relays for grid connection or PV disconnect, but generally it's all solid state driven now.
Okay. How important is it to keep your firmware up to date? I know the stock answer is always going to be, yeah, you should keep it up to date. But you're talking about something that the last time I had my Sol-Ark software updated, I couldn't tell you anything. I don't think I was 2% more efficient with anything. It was just, okay, we updated your software. Maybe a screen looks slightly different or something. Again, this isn't your home computer where there's people actively trying to break into your computer and steal your information. So again, I did a big run up to that question, which is on a 1 to 4 scale, 1 being, oh, I would worry about it, and 4 is, oh my gosh, I would do it every time they said. How often would you want to make sure that your firmware's? What's your opinion?
The level at which annoyance you discover. You just added on a generator to your house. Sol-Ark, love them, have been notorious for having a poor generator interface. Their latest software update fixed that.
Okay, because mine is actually coming in through the grid.
But it's generator on grid. It still knows that it's a generator and it's using the generator interface. They got enough feedback that their generator software was poor, and they went through their internal testing and finally came out with a new code that's supposed to resolve all the issues.
Okay, but that's a big one-off. It's just day in and day out. The next update that they have after that, I know we don't write their code, we don't handle their stuff, but how different could that next piece of software be? And to me, it just doesn't seem like it could be that critical of a...
You grew up in Y2K. That was a 50-50 on whether it was going to be the end of the world.
Oh, and nothing happened. I don't know that anything
Nothing happened, but...
I think it goes back to what Fortress told you about your batteries and their update.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to that. I think if your system is working exactly like you want it to work and you're off grid, everything's working and you don't plan on expanding it, it's just what it is and you want it to operate. I just don't see the need for the update. And I think a lot of our customers will be exactly down that line as they're like, it's working and doing. Because if they update and then something changes, now they're mad. Now it's going to be an issue like, gosh, can I go back? Can I just go back to what I was before? And unfortunately, that just usually doesn't happen. They don't ever go backwards. They always go forward. Me personally, I think it would be up to the customer and their want of what their systems to be doing. Philip, I think, he's not a one-off. I think he's on the upper end of the, I want to stay up to date. I want to be able to see everything, and I want everything new and on my code. I want everything to be the newest version I can. And we're going to have customers like that too. I know I've got 2 or 3 customers that are exactly like that. They want to be on that spectrum. I've got customers that would never, ever want to update. They wouldn't even know when I say update. They'd be like, you mean fix up the room that it's in? Or it's totally different. So I think it's just basically going to be on the customer.
And I want to add something onto that because you made me think of another comment about this, is that you've got to be careful too with getting behind, because there'll be some instances that you can't go to the latest version unless you step through some other versions.
Correct.
And just hypothetical, if you're on version 1 and their current version is 4, you might be able to go from 1 to 3, but you can't go from 1 to 4. You got to go from 1 to 3. And if you try to go to 1 to 4, they should prevent you from doing something like that. But you can also burn yourself pretty hard. You could, again, we use the term brick your system, which is basically destroy your system if you're not careful with that. And products like your home computer, a lot of you run Windows 10 to Windows 11. You're not going to have that. Your Android phone updating, your iPhone updating, all that's going to be good. But these are systems that are not that widely. They don't have probably 20 people that do nothing but make sure that your mom doesn't hit Control C while they're doing it.
That's the big thing with your inverters is they don't have a huge hard drive in them. You have to build those dependencies one by one. Version 3 is going to build off of version 2. If it's missing 5 lines from version 2 and you install version 3, now you're missing 5 lines. And that could do nothing, or that could give you the blue screen of death.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say as far as updating would be you really need to look at your batteries. So like the Midnight battery or the Pites battery or the Fortress batteries, any of your lithium batteries that are your bigger brand batteries. If you intend to add on batteries, you do need to keep up with the updates on the batteries.
Yeah, you don't want to get out of sync with.
Because if you do not do that and you try to add a new battery to the system and it's on literally version 10 and you're on version 2 because you bought them 3 years ago, they won't communicate with each other. And so you're going to have major conflicts and charging inefficiencies, not even charging.
And you would probably, I'm sure, Sol-Ark, because again, I've got two
right.
15Ks. I'm sure you have to do those in
if you intend to grow your system,
very
then you need to keep up with updates. So that's what I was saying. It's going to be up to the customer. If you're going to buy a system, a whole home system, and this is it, I'm never increasing, I'm never doing anything.
Well, that's the worst thing you could ever say, because then the following week, there's going to be something that you want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I would say then you need to keep up with your updates at least, golly, once a quarter. See if anything's come out once a quarter.
One of our products came out with something new where the Midnight, doesn't the one in its batteries, if you have your inverter on the network,
the new Midnight All-in-One and the new Midnight PowerFlow 5 batteries, if you have them connected together and have them in closed-loop communication, which works flawlessly because they own both of the deals, they will automatically update. So if you have automatic updates done on your inverter, then it will automatically update the batteries as well. So that is a really nice feature that Midnight has done. The Sol-Ark could do automatic updates to itself, but it cannot automatically update any batteries. Batteries have to be. So if you're using a Pites battery or your full,
which that makes sense. Yeah.
They just, and most Sol-Arks, we recommend running an open loop communication versus closed loop. But on the Midnight, if you're using like inverter, like battery, closed loop communication is perfect because it gives you a lot better feel for the batteries.
What else we got?
That's all I've got.
I don't know that we gave any kind of solid, other than probably just be aware that you need to be aware, and you got to make some decisions that work for you.
Yeah. And the biggest deal is when you're making your choices for your inverters and your batteries, maybe do a little research into what kind of systems they're operating on and do they have to be connected to the grid to operate. I wouldn't own a system that did. I just wouldn't own it. So
yeah, that's it. Is know where your stuff comes from. There's a lot of products out there. There's a lot of non-brand or even name brand that give off a different image than might actually be true. And we try to simplify that for you by doing the research before we even carry anything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you being here today, and we look forward to bringing you some more podcasts here in the near future.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast today. If you have a question you'd like to hear us discuss on the podcast, or just want to say hello, email us at radio@windandsolar.com. As always, check out our store at windandsolar.com and buy some stuff. Your financial support underwrites our educational outreach, like the podcast, YouTube channel, and local STEM collaboration. It also keeps Lucy and her doggy chicken treats. Thanks again for listening.